and do battle if we don't take care of ourselves and each other. Please take care of yourselves, be blessed, and I'll see you out there. I'm not going anywhere.
A recognizable face, a former vice president and presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, telling everyone California's not going anywhere. But where is she going to go, politically speaking? Well, that's a question the New York Times tried to ask and answer. Tyler Pager is one of the authors. So, Tyler, thanks for being with her. Good job on the article. What do you think the answer is?
It's a great question. A lot of people are asking. Increasingly in conversations we had with many of her allies, former aides, current aides, it seems increasingly that she is leaning toward a run for California governor. That has not been fully decided yet, and obviously with all politicians, nothing is official until it's formally announced.
Exactly.
But increasingly, her activity, her conversations, and her interest seems more geared to that race next year.
And that would inevitably foreclose a 2028 presidential bid, would it not?
Ostensibly, yes. The way that she has presented it to people she's discussed it with is that it's a binary choice, either running for California governor or running again for president in 2028. Some allies have pointed out that she would be young enough to run again in 2032 should she forego this run. Doesn't officially close the door, but politically speaking, it's a choice between those two races.
And do those close to her perceive it as a sort of foregone conclusion if she does announce that she would not only be the front runner of the Democratic primary, but in all likelihood, the runaway winner?
For the California governor,
yes.
that is what they assume, and there are people already in the race who have basically said that they would withdraw and clear the way for her, but not everyone has.
Javier Becerra has not. Former HHS secretary of the Biden administration.
Yeah, one of her former colleagues who replaced her as attorney general as well. So there is a belief that she would be the clear frontrunner, particularly from those close to her. She obviously has the stature of a former vice president and a network of running two presidential campaigns that would bolster her efforts. But it is not clear that she would automatically run away from the race. There isn't a lot of polling yet to really determine what the race would look like with her in it. But there is belief that the race would be much easier for her than, of course, running for president again.
So there's two ways to look at Kamala Harris, if you're a California Democrat or if you're a Democrat who lives in another state. And there's a fascinating anecdote in your piece about the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. It was high visibility nationally just a couple of weeks ago. Control room, that's graphic number 2. I want to read from it. Ms. Harris's offer to visit Wisconsin was rejected as a potential distraction during early voting, according to people briefed on the discussions. And even the Zoom call, the vice president was on a Zoom call with activists in Wisconsin among the Democrats, was kept private until after the polls closed at the request of Wisconsin Democrats. It doesn't mean she's radioactive, but it means there is more than a little bit of sensitivity about involving her publicly in any contested space outside of California.
Certainly, and I think some of the important context there was that the Democrats in that state were trying to make the race about Elon Musk, who poured in a lot of money and publicly appeared days before the election to bolster the Republican-favored candidate in that race.
Don't do anything that might increase awareness and mobilization on the right.
Absolutely, and I think that was the intention there. But it is obviously a stark reminder that Kamala Harris lost that state in November and remains a divisive figure for some Democrats who feel that she was maybe not the best person to take the mantle up from Joe Biden and maybe was not the strongest candidate. Obviously, she didn't win the election in November. So I think that is something that she and her team and allies and advisors are ruminating over as she decides what her political future looks like. And as we report in the article, a lot of that is just that rumination period is some reflection and frustration over the circumstances with which she inherited a campaign and ultimately ended up losing to Donald Trump.
Two quick questions. Timetable, and if she runs for California governor, does she run against the record of Gavin Newsom?
So on the timetable, I think we're expecting to see some sort of more declarative announcement later this year around summertime. One contingent factor there is that the funding she's provided for the post-vice presidential office runs out after 6 months. So
that's sometime in July?
Yeah, she needs some sort of fundraising vehicle to raise money. And does she run against the record of Gavin Newsom? I think They are frenemies, as some people put it. They've known each other for decades. They have some of the same political advisors, and they have worked closely together. So I think what exactly the message would be is premature, but there's definitely a rivalry there.
And it's a question that will hang heavily if there is a candidacy. Tyler Pager, great job. Thanks for having me.